Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Muscle Talk. I'm your host, RTM, which stands for Russell the Muscle. You guessed it. On today, of course, as promised on my Instagram, which is Muscle Talk Show, I am going to be talking about all the Fox superhero movies. But I do want to warn you, this might not be in depth when it comes to a good amount of them, because if I'm being honest, in my opinion, Fox just does not know how to make superhero movies. Unfortunately, they should leave that to like the MCU, because of course Marvel knows how to make a great movie. I mean, just look at Endgame. But we're not here to talk about the MCU. We're here to talk about, of course, like I said, Fox. So, but before I get started, I am going to talk about a couple things that I have watched ever since my last episode. For starters, I will say I know I'm late on the ball. It's been a while, but I haven't. Don't judge me. I didn't watch this until more recently, whereas a lot of you probably has. But I do have to talk about it, and that is Agents of Shield. I started getting really into Agents of Shield a couple weeks ago. Fantastic show. If you haven't seen it yet, which I'm sure a lot of you Marvel fans probably have, I highly recommend it. Oh, it's so good. At first, when I first watched the first episode long ago, I thought it looks kind of bland. It looks like it's gonna be boring, but I really, really got into it, and now I'm gonna keep watching it. I really like it a lot. Well, I'm gonna keep watching until the series is, of course, over. Until I'm done watching the series. But it is a great show, and I do suggest you check it out. Now, I'm not going to talk much about the other thing I watched because I don't want to spoil it, but I highly recommend, of course, Venom Let There Be Carnage. Fantastic movie. I watched it in theaters. I'll give it like an 8.5 out of 10 if I'm being generous. The lowest I would give it is an 8 out of 10. I overhyped it. I thought it was going to be a lot better than it was, but I got still a great film, just not as good as I thought it was going to be. But it was an 8 out of 10, and I really enjoyed it. Great funny moments, great scenes. I suggest it. If you're a Marvel fan, you'll love it. Plus, stay for the end credits. A lot of people walk off not thinking there's an end credit. There is an end credit, and it's one of the best end credit scenes, in my opinion, out of all the Marvel movies. So check it out. All right. So now let's get into the video. I have, of course, this is going to be a video talking about the worst to the best in the Fox superhero films. And the first movie I'm going to talk about is The Bottom of the Barrel. Listen, this is one movie I will never, ever, 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 ever watch again. Unfortunately, most of them on this video is. But other than like the top 6 or 7. This movie is gotta be the worst superhero movie ever made in history. I'd prefer Howard the Duck. So that movie is Fantastic, the most recent Fantastic Four movie. From the way Doctor Doom was portrayed, he was a little bitch. Let me just be straightforward. Doctor Doom was just horrible. The end fight scene was just a few minutes long. From the way the Fantastic Four got their powers, it was just dreadful. The whole movie from start to finish was a horrible, horrible, horrible movie, and I will never watch it again. So, for those of you who didn't watch it because you heard it was horrible and skipped it, lucky you. I had to unfortunately suffer through the entire film. But let me move on because I don't want to talk about this movie anymore. And honestly, I don't really want to talk about the next few movies either. But let's do it. The next 2 movies are on the same boat for me. And the first one, Elektra. So, Elektra was boring, bland, nothing special about it. I actually know people who liked it. I did not, but, agree to disagree. I can't say anything positive about this movie, so that's all I got to say about that. The other one, Daredevil, same boat, bland, just a bland movie. I did not care for. I won't watch it ever again. And there was nothing special about this movie, so let's move on. Some of these are probably just gonna be quick because I don't care about them. All right. The New Mutants. I was excited when this movie came out. I wanted to watch it, and I did. I actually got this as one of my birthday gifts. I think last year. It was last year or the year before. I don't remember. I don't remember when this movie came out, to be honest, because I don't care for it. I watched it, and I was just like, meh. Like this is a movie that I guess if I'm drunk with a few friends, maybe I'll check it out. It's got very little scenes that made me like, yay. This movie is bland, boring, don't care for it. It is one of the worst superhero movies ever, in my opinion. Some of you might have liked it, but certainly not me. So, moving on. All right. So, the next two were hard to place too, because there's one major factor in both of these that I really didn't like, along with the rest of the movie that I also didn't like. But the next one is X-Men Apocalypse. Horrible, 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 horrible. You cannot say horrible enough. Horrible movie. I couldn't stand it, especially the fact that Apocalypse had the power to touch the computer and be like, learning. So interesting. Moving on. All right. So the next one is X-Men The Last Stand. This movie had too many plots, from the mutant cure to a subplot of the Phoenix Saga. Are you serious? Like the Phoenix Saga deserves its own freaking trio of movies. It's one of the biggest X-Men storylines. It's literally a subplot in this movie. That is ridiculous. That is just not the way you do it. I can't say anything else. This movie is just horrible. Okay? And you won't catch me watching it again. So, yeah. Please ignore the background of the owner of the school walking past the studio and the dog following behind him. All right, moving on. But yeah, this movie was horrible. But I think the thing that I hated the most about it was probably the fact that they had the Phoenix Saga as a subplot. That was annoying. But you also can't argue about the fact that they just they made it seem like Cyclops' death wasn't important enough. His and Professor X's. So yeah, that's it. Moving on. Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. Believe me when I tell you, I wanted this movie to do good. It did not. It failed miserably. But I think that the main thing that made me mad about this movie was the way Galactus was portrayed. He went from this, just the way he looked. Seriously. I can't. I just can't. Silver Surfer, it was cool having him in a movie, but they should have done better. They should have done way, 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 way better. And personally, I don't blame everyone for hating this movie, because most Marvel fans, true Marvel fans, do not like this movie. Moving on. At least it was better than Fan 4 Stick, huh? Alright. X-Men Origins Wolverine. This is so disappointing. I love Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. He's one of my favorite superhero actors ever. But unfortunately, this movie really dropped the ball. Especially with what they did to Daredevil. Deadpool. That was just disrespectful, man. The way he looked, sewing his mouth shut and everything. I mean, in Deadpool 2's end credit, that was amazing how he shot himself. He shot the Deadpool from X-Men Origins Wolverine. That was a great end credit scene, just funny. But X-Men Origins was just not that good of a movie. But at least it was better than the other movies that I listed. In my opinion, at least. Some of you might have this at the last, at the bottom. But It just wasn't a good movie. All right. The Dark Phoenix. Better than, you know, X-Men The Last Stand, of course. Like, the Phoenix plot in X-Men The Last Stand was dreadful with everything they did. But it was definitely, X-Men Dark Phoenix was definitely way, way, way better. By the way, shout out to my main man, Jose, who just walked past the studio. X Men Dark Phoenix was way better. It actually had some cool, memorable moments. Just they still didn't tell the story right, and that's just disappointing. That will always be disappointing. This is a movie that the first time I watched it, I low key fell asleep halfway through it. The second time I watched it, I was like, this is just absolutely horrendous. But still better than the others. Moving on. The first Fantastic Four movie. Okay, so this movie was bad, but it wasn't as bad as Rise of the Silver Surfer or Fan Four Stick. Listen, it's just so disappointing. I mean, look at Doctor Doom. In all of the movies with the Fantastic Four that was already made, Doctor Doom looks like a little bitch. He looks too weak. Doctor Doom is supposed to be one of the most powerful Marvel villains. Why is he so damn weak in according to Fox? Like, I hope the MCU does him justice. That was probably the most disappointing moment in this movie. The fact that Doctor Doom was so freaking weak. They just ruined such a great Marvel bad guy. I don't know. I'm so disappointed, but hopefully the MCU does it right. Because I believe in the MCU big time, and I think they'll make the Fantastic Four good. Finally, we need a good Fantastic Four movie. All right, moving on. The Wolverine. It was I don't think it was absolutely terrible. This might be an unpopular opinion. A lot of you might have hated it, but I don't think it was terrible. I thought it was all right. It's just probably not like the best movie in the world, and the probably why it's so high on this list and why I'm even saying it's all right is because, again, Wolverine's in it. Listen, I might be biased for that one. I love Wolverine. I love Hugh Jackman. So, but however, I don't think this was like the best movie. I thought it's nothing I would probably watch ever again anyways. Like most of these, like I said, you guys voted to watch my worst to best Fox movies on my Instagram, but most of these movies are dreadful. Like Fox does not know how to make a good superhero movie. I'm sorry. Moving on. No offense, Fox. All right. The first X-Men movie. I mean, it's a classic. It's one of the superhero movies that like kick-started the modern era of superhero movies. I mean, great movie. Hugh Jackman portraying Wolverine, excellent job. I don't even know why I said great movie. It was just okay, but I just can't support that, like, giving this a higher rating because there was so many flaws with the movie, and like I said from the start, kind of boring, kind of annoying, too many plots to it, just like almost every superhero movie in Fox. So let's just move on before I get bored just talking about these movies. X-Men 2. I'm trying to rush to the good ones. X-Men 2 is probably one of the movies that I would watch again. This one's okay. And we're almost towards the end, and now we're finally just getting to the movies that are okay. This movie has some great moments. I'm glad that it had Nightcrawler in it and everything with Wolverine. I do believe that there was too many plots in it, and the main villain just didn't do it for me. I didn't care for the evil scientist who experimented and gave Wolverine his adamantium skeleton. I didn't care for that plot. That's probably why it's so low on my list and why it was just okay. But other than that, there was some cool moments. Nightcrawler at the beginning was badass, and of course, Wolverine and Storm, and it was a overall good movie. Jean Grey giving her life at the end. I don't know if that was nice or annoying, but overall it was decent at best. I would watch it again, but it's definitely far from one of my favorite movies of all time. Far from one of my favorite superhero movies, even on Fox. Next one. All right, now we're getting into the movies that I believe are really good. X-Men First Class. Great movie, great storyline, great way to tell Professor X's and Magneto's origin story. It was a fantastic movie. Finally, we're in the top 5. We're in the top 5, and we're finally getting to great movies out of 18. Think about it. Out of 18 movies, only 5 movies I really, really enjoyed. That's just horrible. Sorry, Fox, you suck. All right, but yes, First Class was a great movie, great origin story, great storyline overall, and when the trailer first released, I was like, that doesn't look exciting, but I was wrong, and it was great, and I really really enjoyed it, and I would watch it again, for sure. All right, you guys knew it was coming. Deadpool 2. Some of you think Deadpool 2 was better than Deadpool 1. I don't. I think it was really good. I think both were great. This was a great, 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 great movie, though. Deadpool 2 is probably one of my favorite superhero movies of all time. Probably in at least top 15 out of every superhero movie, though. MCU and Sony and Fox, everybody. But it's, there was a lot of plots in it that put it lower on the list for me than the top 3 movies, but I do believe that this movie was excellent, entertaining, hilarious from start to finish, and I would watch it over and over again, personally. Ryan Reynolds, great Deadpool, of course, but there are 3 movies that are slightly better than this one. Logan at number 3. Some of you might be disappointed. Some of you probably have this at number 1. I think it's in top 3. I think it's a great movie. I think it's a great storyline. It finishes the story of Wolverine and Professor X great. Unfortunately, in my opinion, I think it's great movie-wise, a little boring superhero movie-wise. Not enough action for my taste. That's why it's just number 3. I know some of you can hate me for that, but I did really, really, really enjoy this movie, and I would watch it again. Moving on to number 2, X-Men Days of Future Past. I loved it. Great storyline. Might be a little biased because Wolverine was the main character, of course, but great story. I love how they sent Wolverine back in time to try to save, the world, of course. But it was. I think it was a great movie. I think overall it's probably my top 10 favorite superhero movies of all time. But this is definitely by far the best X-Men movie, in my opinion, out of all of them. Hands down, no competition. But at number 1, of course, Deadpool. Come on. Hilarious from the beginning. I mean, great storyline. It told the story about Deadpool great. It definitely fixed its many mistakes of how they made Deadpool and X-Men Origins Wolverine. It was excellent. Great story, great build, and they're building the Deadpool storyline really, really well. Deadpool 2 was great, of course. Of course, that was at number 4. I talked about it earlier. Ryan Reynolds is excellent. He's hilarious. Everything about this movie was just fantastic. Excellent action scenes. I love that they had Colossus in it. But it was definitely. This is probably my top 5 favorite superhero movies of all time. Great, 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 great movie, and I cannot wait for Deadpool 3. And plus, I think Deadpool 3 is going to be part of the MCU, and I am excited for that. But overall, let's be honest, MCU destroys Fox when it comes to superhero movies. I mean, you could take the best, maybe with exception to my top 3: Deadpool, X-Men Days of Future Past, and Logan. But other than those 3, you could take the next best from the Fox movies and put it up against the worst in the MCU, and MCU still wins, except for Thor: Dark World. You guys made a big mistake with that one. But overall, MCU definitely has way better movies than Fox. Let's be honest here. However, that, of course, was my video on all the Fox superhero movies. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you comment, of course. Comment down below what you agree on, what you disagree on. Like my video, please. Subscribe. And, of course, follow me at Muscle Talk Show on Instagram. I'll be waiting for your follow. And let's continue talking movies. Peace.